Hello and welcome to the Crystal Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook and today in Pod 9 I'll be looking at a result over Stoke City by bringing you my match review player rankings and my man of the match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you an exclusive interview with Alfonso, Townsend and Joe Ledley after the game, so let's begin. Palace claimed back-to-back wins in the Premier League for the first time since last December in emphatic style as they thrashed Stoke City at Selhurst Park. Filled with confidence after beating Middlesbrough last weekend, the Eagles raced into a 2-goal lead thanks to efforts from James Tomkins and Scott Dann, and after the break, further quick-fire strikes by James McArthur and the first Eagles goal for Townsend put Palace 4-0 ahead. Marko Arnautovic would pull one back with the merest of consolations for the visitors with the final kick of the game. However, it couldn't spoil what was a brilliant afternoon in SE25 for Alan Pardew's men. After a bright opening 10 minutes, Palace soon found themselves in firm control of the game by scoring twice in quick succession. Wilfried Zaha was fouled in the final third, and Townsend delivered the free kick to the back post, where Tomkins and Jonathan Williams competed, and after the Irishman inadvertently flicked the ball into his own net, the Palace defender managed to get a touch on it to force it over the line and score his first in red and blue. Selhurst was rocking, and soon Tomkins' fellow central defensive partner joined him on the scoresheet. Straight from the restart, the hosts won a corner, which this time was delivered by Jason Puncheon straight into the head of Dann, who made a now trademark run from the edge of the box as he powered it through the crowd of defenders to net a second goal in 90 seconds. The game continued in its attacking vein, and Puncheon shot straight at Shane Given before Wilfried Bony pounced on a mistake by Dann to go one-on-one with Steve Mondonda, but he stroked the chance well wide of the far post, before Townsend forced Gibbon into a good save after bending a free kick towards the near post. In the 23rd minute, there was a nice ovation from inside Selhurst as the home supporters gave a minute's applause for Papa Soiree to wish him all the best as he recovers from his car accident. But following that, the chances dried up as a dominant Palace continued to easily contain their opponents, who totalled just one touch in the Eagles' box before half-time. Tomkins' impressive home debut ended prematurely as he limped off at the break, with Delaney taking his place. With Stoke finally registering a shot on target in the opening couple of minutes, however, Ryan Shawcross's tame header was comfortable for Mondonda. But Dann once again showed how he can do and what he can do at the other end, and only a well-placed Bojan managed to prevent it from coming 3-0 when the Eagles captain once again was first to meet a Puncheon corner, but the Spaniard nodded it off the line. And minutes later, a goal-mouth scramble saw Delaney, Christian Benteke and Zaha all unable to force the ball over the line from close range. However, the pressure finally told on 71 minutes when the third goal did arrive. Once again, it was from a set-piece delivery into the area that did the damage, and when Puncheon's ball wasn't fully cleared by Stoke, it came to McArthur on the edge of the box. After getting it under control, he shifted it onto his right foot and took aim, and saw a big deflection of Jeff Cameron to deceive Gibbon and secure the 3 points. With the pressure off, Palace charged forwards again 3 minutes later and once again found the net soon after scoring. This time it was all Townsend who picked up the ball in his own half and ran down the left flank before cutting inside, turning past Joe Allen and whipping the ball into the bottom corner of the net to finally open his Eagles account and make it 4-0. Stoke were merely playing for pride in the latter stages, and a last rally saw Main Defoe header over from a corner before he fizzed the ball into Bony, who couldn't get a strike goalwards after sending Mondonda to the ground, and in the final minutes of normal time, Jonathan Waters bent a ball wide of the mark after finding a way past the Palace keeper. But with the final kick of the game, the consolation did come when Arnautovic slammed home from the edge of the box after Bony's pass deflected into his path. However, it could not take the gloss of what had been a wonderful afternoon for the Eagles. So now you've heard the match review, we're now going to move on to some positives and negatives from the game. Crystal Palace. 4-1 winners on Sunday, dominated in a performance of clinical precision that was made easier by Stoke City being overrun in the midfield and the defence. Now for some positives from the game. Palace secured their second win in a row for the first time since December 2015 with a performance that showed verve, tenacity and drive, the kind that Palace fans had been longing for. At the heart of the dominance was the relentless James McArthur, flanked by the equally impressive Jason Puncheon and Ledley. Now for some negatives from the game. James Tomkins, who marked his home debut with a goal, suffered a knee injury at half-time. Palace will hope that the new recruit from West Ham won't be out for so long. So now you've heard the match view, we're now going to move on to the player rankings, but before we start with that, don't forget to follow us across social media on Twitter and Facebook at eCrystalPalace for all the latest news, and for all you Facebook users out there, don't forget to check out our Facebook group so you can join in with the latest discussions, read the latest news, and also post your own opinion. So obviously if you do want to get in contact with us and you're not listening to the podcast via YouTube, do contact us via both Twitter and Facebook, because we want to hear your opinion, we want to see what you thought of the game, and also we'll go on to talk about who you thought the man of the match was. And I suppose another place for you to express your opinion other than YouTube comments is on the Facebook group as well. So if you go on there, there's lots of discussion on there. You can post your own opinions after the game in your own posts and other people comment on them. And also, we post the latest news on there so you can keep up to date with all the Palace news. But certainly, if you want to have your own opinion, either comment below the video on YouTube or contact us via these several social media accounts. But enough of that, we're going to start with the player rankings, and starting with Steve Mondonda in goal, and I am going to give him a 7. But for Marco Arnautovic's late consolation, Stoke really didn't test Mandanda. The goalkeeper brings a calmness to the back line and played a significant role in organising the players in front of him. So obviously Steve Mandanda, he's got a 7 once again. He's carrying on his form since he's come into the side, and to be honest, I don't see why not he can't be the first team goalkeeper now, the first choice, because he's been solid the last few games, and it was unlucky not to get the clean sheet, obviously the late consolation goal for Stoke, but other than that, Stoke didn't really test him. On a few occasions, Stoke almost got past him, but obviously the strikers couldn't finish off their chances and either went wide or it was cleared by players. So really, he wasn't really tested throughout the game. But sort of like Speroni used to do, he used to command the side very well. He used to organise the men in front of him. And obviously, Mondonda's helped by the fact that the captain Dann's in front of him, organising the back line. But, Steve, he showed some of his qualities, his leadership qualities, throughout the game, because he was able to make sure that the back line was very controlled, was very organised. And he just kept the sort of calmness on the game as well. But to be honest, I've given him a 7. He'd done nothing. He didn't have to do anything spectacular in the game like he's done in other games, making big, massive saves. He didn't really have to do many catches from corners. He didn't really have to do much in the game. And, to be honest, Stoke didn't really test him, so he didn't have to do much. But certainly, that sort of calmness he brought to the side made him deserve the 7, because ultimately that led to us dominating the whole game. Now to move on to the defence, the back four, and I'm going to start with the right back, Joe Ward, and I am going to give him a 7. Had the better of Arnautovic for most of the game, and provided a lot of service to teammates further up the field. After a rocky spell, Ward seems to have found some consistency in recent games. So obviously Joe Ward, he had a very good game, and Arnautovic, we know Arnautovic is a very good player for Stoke, but, Ward had the better of him, he dealt with him very well, and he was on top of him for most of the game. And, he provided a lot of service to his teammates. So, obviously, when he was able to get past the likes of Arnautovic, he was able to go forward and try and support these players. And he'd done that very well. Whether it would be Townsend he was supplying, whether it be Zaha, he'd done that very well once he was able to get by the threat from the attacker. And he'd done that on a few occasions. And unlike the last few games where he's been quite defensive and has been quite isolated in the game, this game he sort of opened up more and he was able to push forward more throughout the game and get further up the field, and ultimately that led to him getting the ball into the areas, providing the strikers, providing the wingers, and ultimately that led to him having an all-round better game. And obviously, like I said already, I've touched on it, he had a rocky start. He hasn't really been playing well the last few weeks, but this game we saw a bit more consistency for him, whether it be his crossing, which have been more consistent in this game than they've been in the last sort of 3 or 4 games. And also some of his defending as well. So in the last few games, he hasn't really been up to speed with his defending. Yes, he's, made blocks, but he hasn't really done them as much as he's done in past seasons. But this game, certainly, we saw a lot more of his blocking, his tackling, and we've seen that attributes as well. And he was sort of doing man marking throughout the game, man marking Arnautovic, and he'd done that very well. So once again, we're seeing his attacking attributes and also his defensive attributes, because he was able to get the right mix throughout the game, which meant that he was able to defend when we were under pressure, which wasn't a lot admittedly, but when we were under pressure he dealt with it well. And also when we had the opportunity to go forward, he set up quite a lot of the counter-attacks, which did lead to a few goals on a few occasions. But now to move on to the centre-back, James Tomkins, obviously his home debut for the club, and I am going to give him a 7. Dealt with the threat of Wilfried Bony with composure and calmness that shows why Palace were justified in spending 10 million on him. His goal, a well-taken tap-in at the far post, also showed what threat he can be. He suffered a knee injury late in the first half, however, and the club will hope that it's not too serious. So I'll start with the injury, and I am recording this a few days after the game, and Steve Parish has confirmed today, which is Wednesday, that it's not a very serious injury, and he should be able, once he gets his fitness back up, should be in the next few games. So whether it be the game at the weekend against Sunderland, or it be the game the week after that, but it's not too serious. And to be honest, he got injured sort of at the end of the second half, or at the end of the first half, but really that didn't affect the sort of last 5-10 minutes he was on the pitch for that. But I'll go on to that later on. But obviously, like I said, Wilfried Bony, a player that Palace were linked with, and I personally think he's a very good striker and wasn't really given the opportunity at Manchester City. But he's moved to Stoke, and he is a very good a very good striker. He is very composed, and he is a very big threat for Stoke, and he was their main man, to be honest, because most of the Stoke's opportunities, and there weren't many of them, but the majority of Stoke's opportunities did come through Wilfried Bony. But once again, James Tomkins, on his home debut for the club, he was composed, he used his calmness just to show how professional he is at dealing with threats such as Bony. But West Ham fans were saying when we brought him in the summer that 10 million is a bit too much for him. But to be honest, it's justified, because his composure, his calmness, that shows how professional player he is, how good of a class defender he is, but also his goal as well. If we were quite known for having defenders who could score goals. Obviously, Ward, Dann, Delaney scored quite a lot of goals collectively last season. And obviously we've got another player brought into the club who, yes, he can do very good defensive work, but someone who can score goals as well. And it was a very nice tap in at the far post. Obviously the ball whipped in from Townsend, a very nice pinpoint cross there. And he managed just to get his foot up high enough to make sure it could go in the goal. And obviously, yes, it's debatably, it could have been an own goal because the player knocked it into his path. But obviously, he did have the last touch, Tomkins, to push it over the line and ultimately score his first goal for the club. And to be honest, it shows what a threat he can be. Yes, we know he's very good at defending, but he's also a threat from set pieces and corners. And that adds to our collection of sort of scoring, attacking defenders we have at the club. But obviously he did suffer the injury late on in the game. I believe it was about sort of the last sort of 10, maybe 5 minutes of the first half. He did go off at half time, but like I said, Steve Parish confirmed today, Wednesday, that he's alright and it's not really too serious, so there's nothing to worry about. It's just probably going to be that he's going to be out for a few weeks, just getting back up to fitness, because I personally know I've had sports injuries that sometimes it could take a few weeks just to get back to full fitness. And I think because Steve Parish has confirmed it's not too serious, it probably means it's only going to be maybe one game he missed. But we were all hoping and praying that it wouldn't be too serious, and obviously our prayers were heard and it's not too serious of an injury. But now to move on to his fellow partner in the back line, and also the other goal scorer of one of the 4 goals, and that is the captain, Scott Dann. I am going to give Dann an 8. It's time that Dann got an England call-up. No other centre-back in the Premier League is as much as a threat from set pieces as he is. His goal, the second of the game, was of a particularly executed routine that gave Dann a clear path to score. As with Tomkins, he dealt with whatever threat Stoke had with him, or had at him, with ease. So obviously, similar to James Tomkins, Scott Dann was very composed and very calm throughout the game, which meant he could deal with the 3 sort of main threats that Stoke have. Obviously, one of them being Bony, the other one being Arnautovic, and the other one, I'm not sure of the name, but he did have a few chances throughout the game as well. But, once again, the question's being asked, should Dann get an England call-up? And judging by his performances, 3 goals already this season, putting in consistent performances in the Premier League, doing his lovely defensive work, whether it be tackling, blocking, headering away from corners. So I don't understand why he hasn't got an England call-up. And yes, I'm not going to say that Phil Jagielka is a bad player, but I certainly think that based on the current form, Scott Dann should be in the England squad above of him, because he's a very consistent defender, and I think that his goals could add something to the England team. But, you know, once again, no other centre-back in the Premier League is as much as a threat than he is. Yes, Antonio, who can play as a defender, has the most headed goals in the whole of Europe, I believe it is. But, you know, Scott Dann, he's the highest scoring centre-back in the Premier League. So why isn't he in the English squad? And once again, the question has to be asked, why? But once again, he was a threat from set pieces, and that was with the goal. It was the second goal of the game, a perfectly timed routine, executed fantastically. You know, Puncheon's corner whipped into the area. Dann, from the edge of the area, ran into the box, into the space where Stoke left. Big, massive block of space that Stoke left. He able to attack the ball there, head it right in, past the crowd of about 3 or 4 defenders on the line defending the corner. So once again, a very well taken goal. And also just the build up to it as well. You know, the fact that he ran from the edge of the box, ran into the box and headed it in was fantastic. And like I said, it was perfectly executed. The build up to it, the cross was perfect, the movement in the box was perfect. Everything about that game, or about that goal, shouted just wonderful routine. But obviously, you know, as with Tomkins, he dealt with whatever came of him with ease. You know, whether it be Arnautovic, whether it be Bonnie, he would put in the tackles, put in the blocks, put in the headers to get it away, but all in a composed and calm manner. Now to move on to the left back, Martin Kelly, and I am going to give him a 7. While Palace will no doubt miss Papa Suarez during the next 6 months, in Kelly they have a perfectly understudy. Jonathan Walters was limited to just a few weak chances, and Glenn Johnson was kept busy with Kelly's overlapping runs. So I might as well start by talking about Papa Suarez, because obviously that's who Martin Kelly came in to replace, and obviously it was confirmed the other day by both Steve Parish and the club that he hasn't really sustained any long-term injuries, so he'll be back in the next sort of 6 months. So in this time, we'll have the likes of Martin Kelly, Zeki Fries in the place of Papa Suarez. And yes, they're not like for like swaps, but certainly in this game we saw why Martin Kelly can actually do this job, because he showed quality defensive work throughout the game. And obviously he is the perfect understudy. Yes, he hasn't really been considered a lot the last few seasons. You know, he's not the sort of player that Pardew would put first in the team sheet. Obviously, Papa Suarez being the one who would normally be in that position. But Martin Kelly's shown why he should be in that position, because he's solid at the back. He does very well getting forward, but also just does the sort of dirty work, you know, making these tackles, making the blocks, everything that you would want a defender to do. But obviously, Jonathan Walters was limited to a few chances, and similar to Joe Ward, in the fact that he was the one who was able to stop him from having the chances. And yes, a few of his chances were very weak from Jonathan Walters. You know, Kelly was able to stay composed, keep the calmness, and also just defend them very well. And on a few occasions, you know, Glenn Johnson was kept busy, because Kelly, yes, we know he's a more defensive player, but on a few occasions he was able to go forward, do some lovely overlapping runs with Zaha, with Townsend just passing the ball to them, and one of them I believe led to the goal, because he had the ball in the defence, he cleared it or he passed it away to one of the wingers. I think it was Townsend just ran down the wing and scored from that. So once again, Martin Kelly, he's doing this, he found a lovely pass to set up that goal. But, you know, as a whole game, he done fantastically well. You know, he stayed composed whilst he was defending, making tackles, making blocks. Also had some very good throw-ins. You know, that's not something you really pick on most weeks. But certainly, you know, we want him to pick up the ball quick distribution. And he done it very well. You know, pick up the ball from the throw-in, do a very long throw, which he's quite good at, and ultimately set up some more chances. So, you know, like I said already, very good defensively, very good attackingly, you know, putting the crosses into the box, trying to get forward, linking up, doing overlapping runs. Everything about Martin Kelly's game was fantastic, and hopefully he will be an honourable replacement for Papa Suarez while we wait for him to come back from his injury. And I must say, on the 23rd minute there was an applause, a standing ovation for Papa Suarez, and that was actually quite nice, because I'm sure that him and his family will really appreciate the support at this hard time going through injuries. But like I said already, it's fantastic that he's able to come through these injuries at Papa Suarez. He hasn't had any long-term stuff, and hopefully the quicker we see him in a Palace shirt, the better. But now to move on to the midfield three, which once again is made up of Jason Puncheon, Joe Ledley and James McArthur. So I'm going to start with Jason Puncheon, and I am going to give him an 8. Palace appear to be working with a midfield that rotates the central three players in and out of attacking roles, a tactic which suits Puncheon really well. Whatever his role, Puncheon keeps the midfield ticking over. His deliveries from set pieces were also a constant threat. So obviously Jason Puncheon, playing in the central three midfielders, was primarily the attacking player, and he'd done that with ease, Yes, he rotated to defensive roles throughout the game and attacking roles. He'd done that very well. And to be honest, we know that Puncheon started off as a winger when he came to the club, and slowly, Pardew's developed him into a sort of a central attacking midfielder because of his creativity. And I think that suits him really well, because sometimes he's not very fast, or gives away possession too much, so he can't get forward as much. But this suits him very well in this formation, because it means that if he can't get forward, he's able to drop back in sort of a more deeper role, whilst the likes of James McArthur and Joe Ledley push up. And, I think that really helped him throughout the game, because on a few occasions, he may have not wanted to go forward, he might not have wanted to take the opportunity, because he felt that he was in a position not to do it. So he would, go back into the defensive role and switch roles with the other two central midfielders. But he'd done that very well. And I think the tactic really suits him very well, because he's the sort of player who can adapt to any position. And this gives him the opportunity to adapt to it depending on the situation and the pressure that we're at under the time. But once again, he keeps the midfield ticking over. He's the sort of person like McArthur who keeps running throughout the game, keeps supplying chances, just keeps going, doesn't stop running. And ultimately, a word to describe it is just ticking over. If it weren't for him, I don't think there would have been such a high tempo in this game. But obviously, he got an assist for one of the goals, a lovely delivery from the corner for Dann to get his header. So once again, his deliveries, whether it be corners, whether it be free kicks, were superb, and they were always a constant threat. And that's another thing to credit him for. That's why I've given him his 8, because he was very good attackingly as well as defending. But also his deliveries from corners especially were fantastic, and obviously a few of them led to goals. And that was why he was a constant threat, because he didn't just have the attacking sense to his game, he also had the set piece threat as well. But now to move on to his partner, Joe Ledley, and I am going to give him a 7. As with Puncheon, Ledley is a composed feature of Palace's midfield. He does the dirty work with ease, providing a reassuring calmness to the centre of the field. So there isn't really much more to say about Joe Ledley, because he's the sort of player who's very similar to Puncheon in the fact that in this sort of free midfield formation, they're able to move around. But I think Joe Ledley, looking back at his performance, he sort of played more primarily as a defensive midfielder. But, he was very composed in the midfield. He would clean up the defenders. If they made a mistake, he would do the dirty work, whether it be pressing players, trying to get passes, make the tackles, and he'd done it very well. And to be honest, some of the players, like Puncheon last season, he would give the ball away quite a lot. But, Ledley, he's very reassuring when he has the ball. He adds a bit of calmness to the ball. Because what he'll do, if the game's quite fast tempo and we're misplacing passes here, there and everywhere, he'll sort of bring the calmness back into the game by just slowing the game down and finding slow passes, whether it be to the wings, whether it be back to the defenders. And he'd done that very well. But, like Puncheon, he'd done the role very well, whether it be the defensive role or the attacking role throughout the game. And I suppose sort of kept the team ticking as well, because if it weren't for that sort of support and cover he gave to the back four, they may have been under a lot more pressure than what they would have been if they would only been the back four rather than someone who playing a defensive midfield role. But certainly his calmness added quite a lot to the game. Now to move on to James McArthur, and it was a record. It was a breaking podcast last weekend, because I gave my first 9 in the podcast. And that was the podcast both for Crystal Palace and my own personal one, the CPC podcast. But actually, I am going to break the record again, and it's not going to be given a 10 because, no player has scored a hat-trick or a double hat-trick yet, so I can't really give a 10 yet, but I am going to give a 9 to James McArthur. So his performance won't make headlines outside of Selhurst Park, but Palace's win was due to McArthur's insatiable appetite for tackles. He made Joe Allen's work in the midfield all the more difficult with his harrying and rustling, bearing to give his opponent a moment on the ball. His performance was rounded off with a deflected goal. So once again, James McArthur is similar to the 3 other midfielders, and I will keep referring to that because they all play very similar roles throughout the game, and they're both crucial, or all 3 of them are crucial in quite similar ways. But obviously, James McArthur, he's not going to get, he's not really going to get onto the team of the weeks because they hardly ever pick Palace players, and the only Palace player they ever seem to pick are the wingers and the defenders. Obviously, Dann being primarily the defender because he scores a lot of goals, Zaha, Townsend being their most attacking threats, and they normally get into the team of the weak sides quite easily, and James McArthur hardly ever does, and he only got into one of them I saw this weekend, and that was one, I believe, for the Football Republic. So he got into one of them, so he did get recognised outside of Selhurst Park for his performance. But, people never look at it, and people said that last season, when Balassi got injured, that's why our season went tits up. But actually, if you look at the whole season as a whole, it was actually James McArthur who was crucial. And once again, in this game, he was crucial to the way that we were set up. And, his appetite for tackles was absolutely phenomenal. Whenever we got possession away, whenever Stoke had possession, he was onto the player straight away, to try and get the ball back, trying to make the tackles on them. And obviously, on the subject of tackles, whenever Stoke had the ball on the counter-attack, he would try his best to put his utmost effort to try and tackle them and get the ball back. And Joe Allen, obviously a new signing for Stoke, who I think is actually a very quality player, playing in that central role for Stoke. He was trying to get the balls to the wingers of Stoke, but obviously McArthur made it very difficult for him to do it because he was hurrying him up, which meant that he was losing possession quite a lot. Joe Allen was losing possession quite a lot, hustling him quite a lot, which means he wasn't as composed to find his teammates, and that meant that Palace maintained quite a lot of possession. And obviously, with this high press game, this harrying and hustling that James McArthur played, it didn't really give the opponent a moment on the ball, and that's because whenever they had the ball, they saw James McArthur running at them, so they had to offload the ball very quickly to get it away, and obviously that resulted in them not really having many opportunities because they couldn't really get the ball forward because of the high press game. But he done all of this in the game. It was fantastic, tackling, whether it be, putting the balls in the box from crosses, whether it be, just doing everything you would expect of a player, in a game, be it playing in an attacking role, and he done that very well. And to be honest, all of that defensive and attacking work was really rounded off in a fantastic performance, and the goal, it's a fantastic work, well taken goal. Obviously, Jason Puncheon on the edge of the area, whipped in the free kick. He managed to control it on his chest, get it down into the area, get past one player, blast it into the goal, and maybe, debatably, it could have been going wide, but it deflected right into the top left-hand corner of the goal. So, a lovely, fantastic goal there from James McArthur, who just topped up a wonderful defensive and attacking game. But now to move on to the front three of Wilf Zaha, Christian Benteke and Andros Townsend. So we're going to start with Wilfried Zaha, and I am going to give him an 8. The winger's trickery, pace and strength was a constant threat for Johnson to deal with. Palace scored 2 goals thanks to 3 kicks and corners won by Wilfried Zaha. So Wilfried Zaha scored the winning goal last week, and once again, like most of the players, carried on his form into this game with a fantastic performance and truly warrants the 8 that I've given him. But obviously, we all know he can do the tricks. He's got good pace and good strength, and he used that to his advantage in the game. Obviously, his trickery in trying to get past players, his pace to try and run past players and cut inside, and obviously his strength primarily to try and win the ball back off players by using hold-up play, and also the strength to get past players. And to be honest, he was a constant threat for Johnson, and I think, yes, the whole Stoke team couldn't really cope that well as they've done in past seasons with our sort of attacking lineup. They weren't able to cope with it very well. This game, they couldn't cope with it whatsoever. Johnson couldn't really deal with it, and that meant on occasions Wilf Zaha used his trickery, pace and strength just to get past him and eventually get into the box. And I think you must warrant Zaha. Yes, he didn't score or assist anything in this game, but he did get the... I suppose if there was a pre-assist, which I like to refer to because you always say the assister gets the assist, but actually, if you look at it, the assister may have got a pass from someone else, which was a better pass than he gave to the goal scorer. And Zaha done exactly that. He was using his pace to get past players. He was fouled, and obviously one of the fouls led to a goal, obviously from Puncheon, whipped the corner in, or whipped the delivery in. McArthur scored. The other one, he was running into the area, got fouled right on the edge of the area. Townsend whipped the ball in for Tomkins to score. So once again, Wilf Zaha being a threat, getting fouled, and obviously providing us with more chances and opportunities. But overall, a fantastic game from him. Totally deserves the 8 he got. and hopefully if he can carry this form on the rest of the season, it's surely going to be a good season for him. And I think this season is definitely one for him to prove himself by getting a few more goals this season. But now to move to the front man, Christian Benteke, who I am going to give a 7. Whilst the striker didn't score, his hold-up play and ability to involve others ensured that Ryan Shawcross and Jeff Cameron were kept busy for the entire match. So obviously Christian Benteke scored the first goal last weekend, and we all thought they may score this game. And although he didn't score in this game, he did show quality in this game, whether it be his hold-up play or his ability to involve other players throughout the game, whether it be the wingers who got goals, whether it be the midfielders who got goals. He was able to, if he couldn't get forward and score himself, he was able to use his fantastic hold-up play to try and involve other players in the game. And ultimately that led to other players getting the opportunity to go forward and winning the ball on a few occasions. And to be honest, he's a very tall man, about 6'5", maybe, that's my guess. And that made sure that Ryan Shawcross and Jeff Cameron were kept busy for the entire game. You know, he was a menace in the air. The crosses were coming into the area. He got a head on one of them, headed it down, used his hold-up play to hold up the ball once he chested it down. His ability to involve others, obviously, the wingers would cross the ball into him and he can't really do anything with it because they're sort of blocking him up. They're doubling up on him. So what he would do, hold up the ball, and then look for the player, look for who else could get the ball, obviously pass it on, and therefore create a lot of opportunities. But, you know, although he didn't score, he kept the two defenders busy for the whole game, and I suppose that's what you want of an attacker. If they're not an attacker who scored a goal that game, you do want them to be a menace, and he done exactly that. So, you know, although he didn't get the goal, he did show quality and what there is to come from him this season. But, you know, all in all, a very good attacking performance from Benteke. Hopefully we can see a few more goals added to his game, because this game showed glimpses of what else he can add to the team other than goals. But to move on to the final player of the front three and the final player of the 11-man squad, and that is Townsend. Obviously got a goal and an assist on Sunday, and I am going to give him an 8. There were some concerns about a lack of end product from Townsend in prior games, but he made up for it with an assist for Dann's goal, and then rounded off his side's performance with the goal of the game. So obviously, last few games, and I did sort of mention this last week, you know, Townsend hasn't really been up to scratch. Yes, he's done what was expected of him in the game, obviously getting crosses in, getting blocks when he had to go back and defend, and he done that very well. But, you know, we had expected for him to have some end product, because we saw the goals he scored at Newcastle. Fantastic curling shots into the bottom corners, and we thought he may be able to duplicate that for Palace. And he wasn't able to do that up until this game. But this game, similar to what Zaha done last week, he got an assist and a goal. And a fantastic goal like that, you know. I believe it was Kelly passed the ball into him just outside our penalty box, and he ran the whole length of the pitch, went to sort of, got to their box, he cut inside, past Joe Allen, hit one on his right foot, I believe it was. Lovely curling effort right into the bottom right hand corner. So we got a lovely goal. That was fantastic. It finally showed us the end product which we knew he had, and obviously the assist as well. A fantastic delivery. And I said Dan's goal. I think that's a typo on my script. It was actually Tomkins' goal he assisted. Obviously Zaha got fouled in the just on the edge of the area. Townsend whipped the ball in for Tomkins to get a lovely touch on it to score. But, you know, we've seen it in this game. We've wanted to see end product from him, and he goes and has a wonderful game against Stoke, providing a goal and an assist. And to be honest, we all knew he could do it, and Pardew said that after the game. He said that in training, we knew he could do that. He's been hitting shots from 20, 30 yards in training. He's been providing assists in training, so we knew he could do it. It's just whether he could duplicate it in the game. And we knew in the last few games that he was building up to it. He's putting in solid performances, getting crosses in. But finally, he got rewarded for his work he does in the team. And certainly, he was one of the best players on the pitch in the game. And hopefully, we can see more end product from Townsend in the next few games. Now to move on to the three substitutions, Damien Delaney, Lee Chung-yong and Matthew Flamini. So obviously two of these substitutions I'm not going to give ratings for, because they were barely on the pitch for more than 5-10 minutes. But I am just going to briefly describe of Damien Delaney. But starting with Chung-yong Lee, he was brought on for the last 5 minutes for Townsend. So that was just to provide a bit more defensive cover. Matthew Flamini, he came on for Ledley and brought further composure to Palace's midfield. Obviously, with his experience he was able to add just a bit more calmness to the game in the latter stages. And obviously, similar to Lee Chun-yong, provided a little bit of defensive cover. Obviously, moving on to the main substitution who came on at half-time is Delaney, and I'm going to give him a 7. Dropped to the bench after struggling at Middlesbrough, Delaney returned to the side at half-time in place of the injured Tomkins. The centre-back had a strong game, making a saving tackle midway through the second half to prevent Arnautovic having a clear run on goal. So for Delaney, he's been dropped to the bench because he hasn't really been the best he can be in the last few games. And I think actually that was sort of a good thing for him because it meant that he had a break, he could able to gain back fitness. And I think that did really help him because obviously he came on a pitch at half-time for the injured Tomkins. And Pardew, quoting Pardew, it didn't really make a difference whatsoever because his composure was exactly the same as Tomkins. He applied himself the same way, as Tomkins. So it was almost like a like-for-like substitution in the fact that they were very similar players. And Delaney done exactly the same job that Tomkins done in the second half, which was have a strong game, be composed, make blocks, make tackles. And ultimately that kept us in the game because obviously in the second half, Stoke were a little bit more better than they were in the first half. But still, Delaney partnering with his normal partner, Dann, were able to hold out throughout the rest of the game, whether it be the tackling, the passing, the blocks, to make sure that Palace did get the win in the end. And talking about tackles, midway through the second half, he made a fantastic tackle to prevent Arnautovic. Obviously, he was running onto goal, clear on goal, one-on-one with the keeper. And obviously, Delaney came up behind him and got the ball away to safety. But once again, a very solid game from Delaney. I don't know whether this will be his last season for Palace. Obviously, comment below the video and contact us via Twitter and Facebook if you do agree with me. But I personally think this may be his last season for the club. But judging by this performance, even if Tomkins does become the first choice centre-back to partner with Dann, I don't see why Delaney could be a substitute or a replacement. Because when he came on the pitch, he was composed, he knew what he was doing. And ultimately, that led to us remaining in the game. But obviously, they are the substitutions for the game against Stoke. But if you do disagree with me or agree with me, do drop a comment below the video on YouTube, or do contact us, like I said, Twitter and Facebook. But you know what? Overall, it was a very, very good performance from Palace, which showed a lot of verve, tenacity and drive, and that is something we've been longing for. A very solid performance from all the team, and you can see by the results, a 7, a 7, a 7, an 8, a 7, an 8, a 7, a 9, an 8, a 7, an 8, and a 7. So it just shows how good a performance that was for Palace, because everyone had very high scores, and I think without looking at the game and listening to what I said, you can tell by these ratings why we won the game, because we were so dominant in the game, because everyone had very good performances all round. Now to move on to the man of the match award, and before I do that and give you my man of the match and who I thought had the biggest influence in the game, I'm now going to move on to the results of my Twitter poll. But obviously, if any of you didn't know, the Twitter poll is not run by Crystal Palace, it's actually run by my own personal Twitter account, which is at the CPC Podcast. So if you do want to give me a follow, please do, because I do post all the latest news on there, goal updates, I do add a few opinions on there as well. But primarily, do follow me because I do have the Twitter poll, who you can vote for the man of the match. And obviously, if you do follow me, do vote in the man of the match award so your opinion can be heard. But obviously, the 4 nominations for the man of the match award this week were Scott Dann, Martin Kelly, James McArthur and Alfonso Townsend. So I'll just give the results here, and then I'll move on to who I thought the man of the match was, and also why I picked each of these players. But obviously, starting in 4th place with 4% of the votes was Martin Kelly. In 3rd place with 9% of the votes was Scott Dann. In 2nd place with 29% of the votes and runner-up for this week's Man of the Match award was Alfonso Townsend, which means with over half the votes, and winner of the Man of the Match award for the game against Stoke City with 58% of the votes was James McArthur. So congratulations, James. You don't get a trophy or a certificate, but you do get my sincere congratulations on what was a very solid performance from you, and to be honest, from the whole team. But obviously, go on to my opinion now and why I picked these 4 players. Obviously, Scott Dann, once again, he was the threat in the year and he got another goal. So, yes, he got a goal. He got one of our 4 goals. He was very dominant in the game. But other than that, he dealt with the threats coming from Stoke City, whether it be Arnautovic, whether it be Bonnie. He dealt with them very well. He was composed in that. And also, as the captain, he commanded the side very well. And that's why I put him on the shortlist. Moving on to Martin Kelly, and this is a debatable one. Some people had mixed opinions about whether he should have been on the list. And to be honest, on my poll, and people following me, felt that actually it was a right decision because the 4% voted for him. But obviously, similar to Dan, he was very good defensively. He made blocks, he made tackles, done everything you would want from him. He was able to make little runs and go in and out of the defenders to get forward on a few occasions. A few crosses he put into the area were fantastic, and ultimately had a very good game overall. And certainly, whilst we're in the absence of Papa Soare, he's certainly a good, worthy replacement in the meantime. Obviously, now to move on to the winner of the Twitter poll. Obviously, James McArthur with I think it's a record-breaking for the podcast, 58% of the vote. So clearly, the people are very happy and agree that James McArthur should be on the list and certainly should win the Man of the Match award. And to be honest, I've already explained it in the player rankings, but he just had an overall fantastic game. And that's why I did give him a 9, because it was just absolutely amazing what he done on the field. But to be honest, it won't make headlines, his performance, because most fans won't put him in the team of the week. But certainly, he put in a shift which is, he would deserve to be on the man or the team of the week, because it was just fantastic. His appetite for tackles was fantastic. His pressing was fantastic. His harrying, his hustling, everything like that was fantastic. And also his movement on the ball as well. He was playing a very high press game, so where he would normally play defensive, this game he was pushing forward quite a lot, and that meant he could get a few opportunities to get forward, and that meant that with his high press he was able to win the ball back quite a lot, and he had very good movement on the ball, whether it be finding a pass, finding maybe just a chip ball. But also a thing to credit him for is just his lovely spins he makes. He gets the ball, uses his physicality to sort of do a twist around the player to get forward again. But certainly just an overall fantastic performance from him, and the whole performance as well was just rounded off with a fantastic deflected goal. Obviously, moving on to the final nomination on the Man of the Match award for this week, I am going to give it to Alfonso Townsend. And obviously, the last few weeks we've been quite concerned because he hasn't really scored any goals. He hasn't really had any end product. But Pardew assured us that, in training he's been hitting them from about 20, 30 yards. And in this game, he went forth, got an assist, got a goal, similar to what Zaha done against Middlesbrough. And overall had just a fantastic game. Obviously, he provided the assist for Tomkins' goal. A very lovely delivery, lovely curling, weighted ball into the area for Tomkins to get on the end of. And also his goal was fantastic as well, running almost the whole length of the pitch, cutting inside past Joe Allen and just curling one into the bottom right corner. So, an absolutely fantastic performance from him, the goal and an assist, but also just his attacking play overall throughout the game was fantastic as well. But obviously, I am going to give you who I thought my man of the match was. And obviously, I normally go with a poll, and this week I am going to go with a poll, and I am going to give it to James McArthur. But before I do that, I'm just going to say who, to be honest, it was a very hard decision. And I was debating whether to give it to James McArthur or Alfonso Townsend. Obviously, James McArthur having an overall fantastic game, getting a 9 in the player rankings, with his pressing, with his attacking, with his tackling, everything like that. But then Townsend, yes, McArthur got a goal, but Townsend got a goal and an assist and was a constant attacking threat. So you've got to balance it out. And I thought these were quite even. But, looking at the poll, James McArthur did shine for me. Yes, that's why I gave him the 9 instead of the 8. But just everything he'd done in the game was fantastic. Yes, he was playing in the central 3, which meant that he was changing positions. But when he did do that, he adapted very well. And that's what added to his game rather than Alfonso Townsend. Yes, Townsend had a fantastic game, a goal and assist. But McArthur shone just a little bit more for me because of the fact that he was having high press. He was having a high press game, getting crosses in, making these spins, getting forward, and also mopping up and doing the defensive work. But once again, all of the players, to be honest, a very solid game indeed. But congratulations to James McArthur on being nominated for the Crystal Palace Man of the Match award for the game against Stoke City. So obviously, now you've heard the match report, player rankings, and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got an exclusive interview with Alan Pardew, Alfonso Townsend and Joe Ledley following the game.
Alan, back-to-back wins and a really dominant performance from your side today.
Yes, because we finally got where I want to go, and now we've got to look consistency on that performance. It's a new team. Everyone kept talking about last year, but it wasn't the same team as last year. It isn't. It's a different look to it, different way of playing, and I think our fans see that, enjoyed it today. But we're powerful alongside that new sort of style, and that's what see us through today, our power. We was a bit too strong in a lot of areas for Stoke. So that bodes well, and now we've got to look for consistency. If we can do that every week, we'll get the right kind of results that our fans deserve, because they've had to be patient, particularly at home.
Alfonso Townsend obviously wasn't here last season, but was that the Alfonso Townsend you signed today?
Well, you've got to be faithful to offensive players. He's done everything I've asked for him, but offensively hasn't really come off. He's come on the inside over it, crosses, and his shooting has been a little bit astray up until today. But in training, we see that is not a problem. That isn't a problem for him. It just hadn't happened in the game, and today happened. He's been doing that in training every day, and so we know we got a great player, and he showed it today to our faithful.
The team were very confident in possession today. Is that something you've been working a lot on in training?
Yeah, and it was a bit unfortunate towards the end because Scotty Dann was sick half time, and obviously we lost Tonka, so we wasn't getting it out as back as much as I would have liked. But I think what I'm trying to do was evident today. We was very confident. We took a few risks, and you're going to do that if you're going to keep the ball.
Yeah, Tomkins went off at half-time, got his first goal for the club. How is his injury?
Well, I'm hoping it's okay, because he certainly put in a great performance and showed why I brought him to the football club. But luckily, we got a legend in the background who come on, and it was seamless, really. Damien come on, it was okay. But we don't want to lose Tonka for too long, so hopefully it'll be okay.
Next up, Sunderland next weekend. Players must be really confident after this.
Well, unless you forget about Southampton in the League Cup, but you are a novice at this game, so I'll remind you we have a game in midweek, and we will be planning for that tomorrow.
Okay, look forward to it. See you there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Man of the match performance, first goal for the club. Great day, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was a great day all round. We knew if we started quick, like we did against Middlesbrough, we'd get some early goals, and it turned out that way, and it turned out to be a great afternoon for us.
Yeah, what do you feel the team's doing differently to the first couple of games of the season?
To be honest, I think, if I'm being honest, the transfer window did unsettle us a bit. There was a lot of speculation about players coming, a lot of players going. So I think once the transfer window closed, you saw all the players start to settle in, and we started to see some good performances, and we started picking up points. That's the main thing. Yeah,
you had lots of possession today. Is it something you're working on in training a lot?
Yeah, of course. We've brought good players to the club. We've got good players now. Obviously, we've got the Route 1 football to Christian, because he can deal with it. But we can also play through teams like we did today and cut teams open. And it's good that we've got both options to use.
And set-piece goals as well. Been working hard on them.
Yeah, all season. I think with the height we've got in the team now, with the quality of the delivery, start of the season from Jason Punch, we should be scoring some more goals. The gaffer's been drumming it into us every game after every game that we should be scoring more goals from set pieces, and today it all came together and we scored a couple from set pieces.
And more goals from the wingers as well, he's talked about. Do you feel like the way the team plays suits your game?
Yeah, of course. I think I was brought to this club to contribute with goals and assists. Been a little disappointed so far this season that I haven't been able to do that, but to get the goal and assist in one game, I'm delighted with that, and hopefully I can keep it going in the next few games. Wilf got his goal and assist last game, and today it was me this game.
Joe, congratulations, fantastic victory today for the team.
Thank you, yeah. We needed that. Obviously at home we haven't been the best, but I thought at times in the game we played some great football.
And you're playing that position just sat in front of the back four. Would you say that's one of your strongest positions?
I'm not sure. I like to attack as well. To be fair, us three in midfield, we can make sorry, I got a wedge stuck in my throat. Yeah, we can mix it up. So it's great to play with Punch and Mackie in there. They work their socks off, and we can get it down and play football as well.
Has much changed in training at all this season, just to get more possession?
Yeah, I think it has. We don't want to just be sitting in and defending all games. So it's important that we attack and get goals, and we proved it today. We're fantastic straight from the off, and we started well, just like last week against Middlesbrough. So that was important to continue that.
Yeah, you mentioned your midfield partners. James McArthur last week, the no-look pass, and this week the curling effort in the bottom corner. He's playing well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's a fantastic player. Obviously, good mates of him, so it's good to see him doing well and getting goals to his game as well. So, I thought it was going wide, but he's taken it.
And you got a great reception from the Palace fans when you came off today as well. Must be great.
Yeah, it's always nice to be appreciated in what you do. Obviously, don't really get many goals, but I tidy up and try and make the team play. So the fans have been fantastic to me since I've come here. So hopefully many more performances to come.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers for that.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Alan Pardew, Andros Townsend and Joe Ledley had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Stoke City. But make sure to comment next week for my post-match review of the game against Southampton in the EFL Cup. So thanks for listening and remember to up the Palace.